This is the legend of the navigator who crossed the ice wall and the Marines versus the Giants. Alright y'all, so this is for the 10,000 people who already watched the first video. I'm going to finish a story in this video plus add the previous video. So I'm going to tell you where to jump if you need to skip the first portion of it. But I wanted to explain something to you guys that maybe some of you might have caught. The fact that I said it was in the early 1800s, the setting of this story. Well, the guns they were using on that island said different. It said that they were more modern times, more like the 20th century. And I want to lean towards that. I think that the timeline took place in more like the late 1900s. I'm trying to make sense of it myself because he explains how William Morris isn't able to get healed by the ancestors' medicine. So I don't know if he leads a normal life to 100 years or if he does live longer, but not quite as long as the rest of the ancestors. Because based on the night vision, based on the automatic weapons, but mainly the night vision wasn't instilled in our military until Vietnam. So if it took place in Vietnam, that would put Morris at almost 200 years old. Could he have been? Possibly. Maybe their medicine prolonged his life that much more, but just couldn't make it as long as the rest of the ancestors, which I want to say is around 400 years old. So then the other part of it was where I'm questioning it is at a couple different points in the storyline, he says something about the lands and the reality. There was just something wrong with it, which that could have been a timeline shift. That could have been time. Even the soldier said that time is funny on this land, on this island. Time is not the same. So could it have happened in the early 1800s, but they landed on this island that has a timeline portal and they brought somebody from the future and the timeline is actually the early 1800s? Like, it's really confusing. So I want to say that my guess would be Morris maybe could have lived to more like 200 years old or maybe a little older because of the ancestral medicine. You can see that he talks about it in the story. He even mentions it, that it helps, but it didn't fix the problem. So maybe he's actually just 200 years old, and it is more like Vietnam era, 80s, 90s. It's hard to say. Let me know what you think in the comments, what it was. So that's where the discrepancy is. I just wanted to clarify that. So a quick update. At this point, it's been years since they first navigated and crossed the ice walls to get to the ancestral lands. William Morris went on to remarry and have a daughter, Helen Morris, but unfortunately, he was very sick from being born and living in the known lands for so long. The ancestors, though they had a super advanced technology, were not able to totally heal William Morris. The poisons in the air had infiltrated his system and he was just too far gone. So there was just nothing they could do to help him with the situation. It was right around the early 1800s, and Admiral Butler and Captain Morris were planning another trip to the known lands. Prior to this, they weren't able to infiltrate them because the custodians had such a tight grip on the boundaries and the entrances into the known lands. And the same goes for underwater. They had all the passages completely locked up. But little did they know, a being had showed up out of nowhere to the ancestral lands from the Cassiopeia lands. This being was highly technologically advanced, and he was able to share with the ancestors a way to infiltrate domes. Prior to this, they didn't really have the tech or the know-how to infiltrate domes like the custodians and the Anunnaki did. So after the beings from Cassiopeia gave them this new technology, they were able to create a portal going into the known lands. They would exploit and use this portal for many years until finally the custodians were able to find it. And of course, upon figuring out this portal's existence, they ramped up the military in that area, all along the ice wall and Antarctica. We're talking thousands of military bases, thousands of military personnel, even regulars or humans that were converted and actually were part of the custodian military. This, coupled with a new technology that they had instilled, made it very hard to infiltrate the known lands. This new technology was a radar system that actually caused earthquakes. So given these factors, you had to infiltrate the lands with the utmost precision. So they were going to use the iron blue and do it by air, just over the passage they had originally taken by ship after the Revolutionary War. So Captain Butler, William Morris, and 2 other crew members hopped on the old Iron Blue, and they began their ascension. As they reached the Iron Blue's top speed, they were climbing to heights higher than William Morris had ever been before, so high that he could vividly make out the waters from above. Then suddenly they began making their way towards the Great Dome. Thoughts were racing through Captain Morris's mind. That's when Butler looked over at him and told him, rest assured, everything will go as planned. This calmed Morris as they descended to what was considered a safe height to be under the radars of the custodians. Everything grew silent. And although they lowered to a speed that seemed safe to enter the tunnel, when they entered it, they were back at light speed. The entire ship was shaking frantically when suddenly they were spit out at the other side, right around 2,300 feet. As they exited the portal, the Iron Blue didn't smooth out like they expected. "What's going on?" said Morris. "I don't know," said Butler. "Something isn't right. We gotta land this thing." The pilot next to Butler was able to right the ship, but regardless, they were losing altitude rapidly. They'd find themselves landing in a wooded area between 2 high mountain passes. They maneuvered her as gently as they could, but her wings would crash into the trees as she landed. "So this is how my return to the No Lands is gonna go," thought William. They got out of the ship in disarray. "Hopefully the custodians didn't spot us on the way down," said Butler. "The best thing we can do right now is gain a little separation from the ship. That way we aren't waiting here like sitting ducks, just in case they did," said William. "Where are we?" said one of the Marines. "I don't know. We seem to be on one of the southernmost islands of Antarctica," said Butler. So they started heading deeper into the wilderness, where there was a dense fog about 10 feet or so off the ground. You could barely see anything in front of you. Regardless, they kept moving forward. At this point, they were about 900 meters away from the ship and heading north, when suddenly they began hearing something crashing through the woods. So they hid in some thick grass and waited. They sat there for about a minute when suddenly the sound stopped. Nothing but silence. So another minute goes by, then 2, then 3, then 5. At this point, they figured whatever it was must have gone. So they went to get up, but as soon as they did, they were shocked as a soldier was standing there with AR-15, but he quickly put his left hand on the gun and raised his right hand, signaling that he was a friendly. He motioned to them silently, "Stay quiet and come to me." Butler said they should do what he asked, and they all make their way towards him. What was this soldier doing patrolling in this part of the known lands, thought William. I didn't think there was any humans that even knew these lands existed. Butler explained, "Let me handle this. I'll do the talking," as they walked up to the soldier and greeted him. He then asked what battalion they were from, and Butler answered quickly and in detail, making sure the soldier didn't question anything. The soldier then introduced himself as Charlie and began handing them fruits and rations. He then explained how he got there and how confused he was that he was there at all. Charlie then patted Morris on the right shoulder, giving him condolences for being there. "Human brothers," he'd say. "It's always good to have a brother to walk alongside me." They started questioning his mental health at that point. If he really knew what was going on around him, they'd soon find out that they were the ones unaware of the current situation. "Ah," said Charlie to himself. "Now I understand. You are new, and you haven't seen the killer beast yet, have you?" They all looked at each other, baffled as to what the hell he could be talking about. "Friends, I'm curious to see the look on your faces when these beasts come upon you in an instant, because I have seen it on everyone's faces that has seen them up to this point." "Listen," said Butler. "What beasts are you talking about?" "You'll see," said Charlie, as he pointed his rifle towards the horizon. "There, he's right over there. Look, you'll see him. He's lying down. Hold on, he'll move in just a second." Morris and the rest of his crew stared in that general direction, when suddenly, out of nowhere, a massive giant stood up. The beast was at least 15 feet tall, maybe even 20, but he and Butler had never seen this species of giant before. "The blue beings. Did you talk to the blue beings?" said Charlie. They all shrugged, as if not understanding. "You fellas sure are some odd new agents. Where are you from?" We can do this later. We gotta get out of here. In due time, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Follow me." They begin walking in the opposite direction of the giant. This war makes no sense at all, Charlie said. Rather, none of war really does, but this one more so than others. We are at war with beings we didn't even know existed until a couple days ago. And these beings obviously don't understand our culture. They act more out of repetition. It's the same thing, almost like Groundhog's Day. It just keeps repeating itself. I thank God you guys showed up. I was starting to feel insane. I think I'm the last one. I was just going to give up. Butler, starting to understand what was going on, sat him down, gave him some water, and said, "Relax, it'll all be all right." They and Butler already knew what was going on. This Charlie seemed to be part of a Machiavellian-type game, a perverse game, a game where lives didn't even matter. It was clear to all of them that this was obviously a game put on by the custodians, a sick, twisted game of survival. Beasts versus soldiers of the known lands. Charlie finally started to catch his breath, and he looked around at beings like him, and this seemed to calm him in the moment. They asked him questions to better understand his situation and what had happened to him. He claimed that he had no idea how he had gotten there. The destination was to reach a base in Antarctica, or so we were told by a military man who claimed to be in charge. We had never seen him before. Some of us were sent to an unusual base in southern Argentina. We were put on a warship. They explained the basics about the mission we were supposed to carry out in Antarctica Peninsula, and it was only about logistics, guiding and taking care of scientists who were going to transport elements for meteorological studies. That was basically what we were informed on. Among the military chiefs, there were also other people with strange dark clothes. They seemed to come out of another time. They had dark glasses and did not look directly at us, but avoided us or ignored us completely. Some of my fellow soldiers began asking questions, and that's when they gave us something to drink. They said we had to. As I drank, it was this rather thick and disgusting liquid. Then my legs started to feel a weird sensation. Then my waist. Then my chest seemed to burst, and I fainted. I woke up among the rocks and the swamp, while unknown people were running and screaming in pain around me. I had this gun, you see, and just as I woke, I got up and started shooting at the beast. They were slowly approaching me from afar. Almost for the same survival, none seemed to understand the situation around us. There was only one very quiet man who was sitting looking at the ground, but his calmness was really admirable. I approached him and shouted several times for him to follow us. Those beasts were taking soldiers with their hands and were shaking them on the ground as if they were made of paper. They would slam them. The nightmare was only just beginning. "You guys see those blue beings?" He looked around and asked. "We saw them the sixth night here. We moved away from the focus where those beasts seemed to live and secluded ourselves along the coast. They tried not to light fires, but the cold and hunger became a worse struggle than those beasts. We go whole days without tasting any food. We had no choice but to make small and divided during the daylight so as not to raise so much suspicion, or that's what we imagined. But as I was telling you, after the sixth night, very early in the morning when the sun was just rising, a large boat appeared on the horizon and approached until it got as close to the coast where we were. 3 of those blue beings appeared overboard. They were very strange because the sun hit them and seemed to go through them. The sunlight turned blue when it touched their bodies. Many of our companions who were camping tried to swim towards their boat as an escape. I thought about it too, but then the boat started shooting at them. Confusion swarmed the entire crew. We had these huge beasts behind the vegetation waiting for us, and from the sea, a boat arrives and began to shoot at us. How can I explain this whole experience? It's so confusing. After killing several soldiers, the boat began to leave, but not before throwing several huge boxes near the shore. We did not trust them after the chilling scene we just saw, but we thought that maybe it was information, something that would explain to us or give us a certain path to follow, or maybe some food. So we had no choice but to open them and bring them to shore as soon as possible. Inside them were more weapons of war, more advanced weapons than we had so far. Grenades, night vision binoculars, and one of the 3 large boxes were sheets that, in addition to detailing the inventory that had been sent to us, it had a list of our names and said, "Freedom is obtained by killing the 7 giants that live on these islands. And once the 7th is killed, an automatic door out will open." Some group took the weapons and headed west, others went to another sector, while others stayed trying to process everything that was going on. It was very confusing. But I knew that dividing up, terrible idea. And I was right. The next night was chilling. They were terrible. We could hear gunshots and screams, then explosions. The giants were definitely gaining the upper hand. We even saw one soldier launched up to 50 feet in the air, his body mangled. At this point, there were only 8 of us left in the group, so we decided that no matter what, we would stick together. And as we were walking through the woods, we suddenly came up on one of them and began running in the opposite direction. Time is weird here. It seems very out of touch with our reality, with my reality. We just continued running in the opposite direction, not knowing that all the while, the giant beast was right on our tail. Eventually, he got within 2 meters of us and grabbed up one of the soldiers. I instantly turned around, firing my rifle, just out of pure instinct, and got lucky hitting it in the eye. It let out a piercing scream. These things can scream in deafening tones. As it was angry, it managed to snatch up one more soldier, but this time, it was one I was very close to. We went through all of base together. He was my best friend. Butler, realizing how much danger they were in after hearing his story, said, "Sorry for your loss, but we gotta get going. Let's get out of here." He didn't know the purpose of this game, but sometimes there didn't need to be one. The custodians just did this type of thing. And Butler knew that these giants had no relation to the ones that he knew. These were genetically modified super soldier abominations. As they were getting ready to leave, suddenly 2 giants appeared. One behind the rock they were standing in front of, and one in front of them. They had them cornered. Charlie shouted out, "These damn giants, I'm tired of this reality." He ran towards one of the giants, firing his automatic weapon. At first it didn't look like they were doing much damage, but as he fired more rounds, you could clearly see that it was hurting the giant. But as he was doing this, the giant raised a massive piece of sheet metal that he had acquired from one of the boxes that the custodians had left them. He reached to the sky as high as he could with it, and then threw it at Charlie, hitting him, ending his life. Though he died, his shots proved to be effective, and the giant died shortly thereafter. Then the other giant, after seeing his comrade fall, ran out of fear. These giants were more automated than they were intelligent. Later, they go back and retrieve Charlie's body, giving him a proper burial. That night, they found shelter in a small abandoned cave, waiting till morning to head back to the ship. "There's something odd about these lands," Butler said to Morris. "They're not a part of reality. They're hidden, almost in like a parallel reality. I don't know how we missed them. And those beasts, they remind me of the Patagons, a race of giant from another land, but they had been genetically manipulated." After laying Charlie to rest, they went up and down the coast to see if there were any other survivors. They found none. So they thought they better make their way back to the ship because they can't leave it wrecked there or they will be found. They were walking. Butler was explaining his confusion about these lands, the fact that they had been through the dome numerous times but never knew of their existence. And he also didn't quite understand the reality. It was a parallel reality, but it seemed that the time may be different. As he was explaining this, he came to the giants. He claimed they came from a race of giants known as the Patagons. They were just highly modified and genetically modified for battle. As he was explaining this to the gentleman, they came upon a large metallic structure, and custodians were standing on guard at the gate. As they looked inside, they noticed a number of men in black and high-ranking soldiers from the new humanity. They were all having a meeting. They concluded that there was a meeting of very high command, because there was a custodian leader there named Agaris. Worried that this meeting may be about them, they hurried back to the ship, and they knew that Butler was going to have to send a signal, see if he could contact any of the other ancestors in the area. But he had fear of doing this because it could set off a massive earthquake. Butler and the pilot Lanner had a heated debate on whether or not to send the signal. But then Lanner came up with an alternative idea. They had a signal called OP.05. That was a signal that was very old and not used by the custodians. They would send this signal and hopefully pick up ancestors in the area. Each signal couldn't exceed 5 minutes and 50 seconds. The first one, nothing. Second, nothing. Third and fourth, nothing again. But the fifth, they got an answer. It was as if it was divine. They said they would come in by boat and they were on their way. But of course, they had to question, were these authentic? Were these actually the ancestors? They waited on pins and needles for 20 minutes. Eventually, to their relief, a modern small boat came, and it was a couple of agents that Lanner, the pilot, knew. so they were in good hands. As they were heading back by boat, the agents named Josh and Ryan told them that the new technology of this land is the reason they had probably crashed, and that a lot of ancestors were probably not making it. They were having to eject into Antarctic waters. These men had contact with a mole that was in high-ranking custodian command. Apparently, the custodians were on high alert as of late because they knew of an ancestor that infiltrated the known lands. Josh commented that Shaki was the one that probably infiltrated the lands, and this hit home with Morris because he was really close with Shaki. There's something about this Shaki that is very powerful. She's a high-ranking giant, and she's very in touch spiritually. She has a lot to do with the ancestral records, the Anakim. She's very intriguing, to say the least. I don't know quite enough about her yet, but she has her own lands, the lands of Shaki. She's very special, and she wants to liberate humanity and the known lands. She infiltrated the known lands looking for Portal 609. And this is a very special portal because it's one of the only portals known to go to Asgard, where the origins of humanity took place. Butler and Morris were curious as to why Shaki and some of the ancestral giants wanted to get into Asgard. There were conversations of the plan that could not be included in the book, but there was a lot of conversation surrounding Asgard, and it says that beings of colossal sizes used to guard the gates of Asgard. And after the custodians took out humanity, the Jormungandr guarded the gates for a very long time. But they say Asgard is where the source and the celestial lands all began. That's where humanity started. The direct connection with Hyperborea and the known lands was destroyed, but 609 is the last portal known to exist that would get us from the known lands to Asgard. And I truly believe it's in Dietlov Pass. It should be noted as well that before they even took off, they had to destroy their ship so that they did a self-destruct protocol on it, so the custodians couldn't discover it and know that they were there. So their modern ship sailed to the south end of South America. They landed on some islands with military bases there. Josh and Ryan gave them multiple points to where infiltrated ancestors should be. They went to these points, and it wasn't until about the 5th that they actually finally ran in to an ancestor. Lanner spoke in Spanish to him and told him they needed a ship to get out of the known lands. He told them that they'd have to go 318 kilometers north. Unfortunately, after stopping at many checkpoints, they felt they could be being watched. So the next morning, they made haste and headed north. The agent that escorted them took them to a large hangar. They hopped in an elevator and headed thousands of meters underground, where they found old ships still covered in dust, but being maintained and ready just in case they needed to be used. One was similar to the Iron Blue. Morris, Lanner, and the 2 other agents hopped on that one. Butler and the new agent hopped on the smaller one. Sure enough, as they took to the air, 2 more ships popped up behind them. They were custodial regulars, and they must have been tipped off by somebody at one of the bases. They were maneuvering and trying to lose them as they headed towards the portal in the dome. Butler and the agent were following Lanner and Morris as they approached the portal, when suddenly the custodian regulars peeled off. Confused, Butler looked at the agent, when all of a sudden, boom! Lanner and Morris hit an invisible wall right in front of the portal. At the last second, the agent with Butler took to the air. Custodian regulars knew what was about to come. The agent and Butler were able to climb and get behind this invisible wall and breach the portal. But unfortunately, Morris and Lanner were done. Butler wanted to circle back and go back through the portal, but the agent told him there was no use. He kept him grounded in the situation, and they made it to the ancestral lands. As Butler walked towards Helen, she automatically knew. Butler was in tears and told her her father had passed away. Helen was devastated. She was almost angry and didn't even know if it was worth it anymore. But deep down, a fire lit inside, and she knew she must carry on her father's legacy because he wanted nothing more than to liberate the new humanity in the known lands. There you have it, folks. Absolutely mind-blowing encounter with Captain Butler and William Morris. I never saw that coming when I first read the story. Who would have thought that custodians play or facilitate like Hunger Games like scenarios, or like they said, Machiavellian type scenarios. Survival of the fittest, survival in extreme conditions. It's like some Alien versus Predator type stuff right there. And could you imagine what those soldiers were going through? It's absolutely terrifying thinking you join the military to serve your country, and before you know it, you're on some random island fighting giants. Absolutely crazy. And I can imagine it gets even crazier than that in some scenarios. Then this land, which time is or acts different. I'm not exactly sure where I think this is at. I haven't really looked at Google Earth yet. It's probably honestly nowhere to be found on any conventional maps or Google Earth. But regardless, crazy story. And not only that, it was crazy to me when they were rescued and they started talking about Shiki and Asgard in Portal 609 to Asgard, but is protected by the Jormungandr, the massive snake that was instilled allegedly by the custodians after they basically eradicated humanity from Asgard. But it said in the story that the original 5 masters that created humanity instilled some sort of power or energy that would not allow the custodians inside of Asgard, but they're surrounding it, basically preventing any one of humanity from getting in there. But Shiki is trying to still infiltrate it. So she's going to have to face the Jormungandr. Crazy stuff. Absolutely awesome story. You know, whether it's real, whether it's fake, it's allegedly fiction. This is for entertainment purposes only, but they need to make a movie out of this stuff, I'm telling you. And also how they said Portal 609 was between Europe and Asia. I believe that Portal 609, I think, is the Dyatlov Pass portal. And whatever's protecting it is something fierce. Once you get through that, then you got to face whatever's protecting Asgard. So, crazy stuff. I love this story. I love reading it and telling you guys. And also, I was going to think about doing something about me. I was also thinking about going live for you guys and reading the story live and doing an actual read from the books. I'm going to put links in the bio or the description, so that you guys can find links to go buy the book yourself, because there's something about reading it yourself that's absolutely fascinating. What do you think in the comments? Stay in the love, stay in the light, be kind to others. Out. All right, Night God family, I know y'all have been waiting for this one. This is the legend of the navigator who crossed the ice wall and the 178 worlds beyond the Terra. A woman born in the lands behind the ice walls. She found herself in a dreary gray room, struggling to open her eyes. Every day it gets harder to adapt to the walled lands, where her ancestors were from. A newspaper, dated June 22nd, reminded her of the rigid routine here, where humanity seems trapped in a dark, unchanging abyss. There is no freedom. Those from the ancestral lands' hearts ache for the known lands people, for they are paying for what the now free ancestors had done in the last war. The memories of those who fought for freedom haunt her, their sacrifices seemingly now in vain as they lost the Great War. Helen ponders this while turning a small lamp on off, reflecting the bizarre need and obsession for materials in this place. It's all a distraction, a way of life, taught to keep them from their true potential, and they don't even know it, she thought. The history they are taught in their schools is all fabricated, but most of them would defend it with their lives. Can't help but notice that being here feels like the people are being punished for the ancestors' past, a thorn in the side of those from the south, beyond the ice wall in lands that most of the people here have no idea exists, and probably never will. The phrase, "pay for a place where you were born," keeps playing in her head. Criminals, she thought. Her father and others paid a high price to find the lands of the giants. Now it's time to break the walls of fear. The custodians have buried and manipulated history, convincing many to defend their lies so blindly. Surviving here is tough, dangerous, toxic, and unforgiving.
Their food, water, and the air they breathe are full of toxins to keep them from living as long as they should.
Alright, y'all, this video and its contents are for entertainment purposes only, and it may or may not be true. Keep in mind, this video is sourced from text that is labeled as fiction. Y'all know the deal. I provide the information and let you decide. And don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, hit that notification bell so you get notified every time I post, because there's a lot more of this coming. Navigator across the ice wall.
To keep them down and more docile than the past waves of humans. But yet her heart is deeply rooted in these lands. She feels connected to her past and the cause for freedom. Wars and manipulation have divided humanity, making the quest for truth that much more urgent. Helen aims to shed light on the known lands and the other worlds behind the ice wall. Thanks to Shaki, the giant human, we have knowledge that was hidden away from the new humanity. Despite revealing her true origins to only one person, she is paving a path to reality. But it's a very delicate dance. They can accelerate the process and reset humanity with just the push of a button. This circle environment is under much heavier watch than before. Living here feels robotic. Love and empathy are few and far between. The custodians, or parasites, as she likes to call them, have controlled humanity for thousands of years. And to break free, we must understand their weaknesses, but more so, their strengths. The custodians. The parasitic race, as mentioned in Chapter 1, bases its technology on attack and defense, focusing on discovering, colonizing, and exploiting other lands and beings. Their origins are unclear, but theory suggests they merged with locals after being attacked by another race, leading to their advanced development. It was the carrion race, it was like a bird-like species, and that means they crossbred with them. Custodians were the first to leave their world, known for their destructive and colonizing power, reaching various worlds. Defeated twice by different races, they remain vengeful and likely to try again. They also attempted to enter the mysterious celestial lands, believed to be the origin of humanity, and its life energy, or soul, our source. Humanity's destiny is to confront the custodians, an inevitable clash with history repeating itself. Each reset leads to stricter control and less freedom, worsening the living conditions. Escaping during the Great War was temporary. Defeat brought more misery to those left behind. Custodians manipulate humans, resetting them to erase their past, starting anew without parents or grandparents. They control the technological distribution, and influential figures reinforce this control. Custodians view humans as inferior and maintain this strict control, even considering resets to prevent one human from escaping. The leaders sometimes debate about eliminating the human race as a whole. Humans perform necessary tasks, creating internal custodian conflicts. Some of them, like us. Some humans connected to the custodians gained passage to other lands like the land of Mars. The last reset, over 250 years ago, followed a significant war, resulting in stricter control. Custodians enjoy human fear and sadness, absorbing negative energy, which explains historical sacrifices and tragedies. They have advanced climate modification, creating ice walls around colonized lands to shield and further enclose those races, making escape nearly impossible. 250 years ago was a reset? That's a crazy thought, y'all. Now the Anunnaki, the notorious Anunnaki, one of the parasitic races spreading sickness across worlds, have manipulated and controlled generations for years. They are one of our enemies, hostile and power-hungry, known as the creators of the pyramids. They build these structures on every world they visit. They are considered the strongest within our Great Dome, surpassing even the custodians. Their technology is highly advanced, particularly their weapons that penetrate the domes, making them feared by other races. They utilize portals for transportation, giving them a significant advantage. Historically, they defeated the custodians during a great conflict. Shortly after, the ancestors started fighting the custodians.
And they would have won. The ancestors had the custodians on their heels, on the brink of losing their precious known lands. So the custodians did something they absolutely didn't want to do. They swallowed their pride and went to the Anunnaki for help. In their first meeting, their pleas for help fell on deaf ears. The Anunnaki still had a sour taste in their mouth from the previous 5,000 years of fighting with the custodians. So they went back to fighting with no help, and this time they were on the very edge of losing the known lands. Knowing this, they compiled some massive stashes of gold. I'm talking mountains of gold that they had stashed across multiple different circle environments. They knew that the Achilles heel of the Anunnaki was that they loved gold. See, the Anunnaki's home Terra had lost its great dome, or its atmosphere, and it protected them and gave them the climate they needed to survive. The only way to replenish this was to atomize gold and shoot it up into the atmosphere. So, strapped with literally tonnage of gold, they went back to the Anunnaki and asked them again, explaining that if they don't, who knows, the Anunnaki could be next. This, coupled with the gold and the fact that they love the known lands as well, they decided to help the custodians. This would be the deciding factor in the Great War. With the Anunnaki and custodians teamed together, the ancestors stood no chance and had to leave the known lands. Shortly after this, the custodians opened massive gates at the bottom of the ocean floors and let out the waters below, resulting in the Great Flood that ravaged the earth.
And they stopped us from defeating and becoming free in our lands. In various stories from the known lands, the Anunnaki are often depicted as reptilian beings, but they are in fact very tall, up to 5 meters, with yellowish-green skin, which is dry and scaly. They live in arid zones with minimal vegetation. Their eyes are yellow, red, or black with distinctive slit irises. Depicted in many forms with humanoid bodies and various animal heads, they have confused the true history of humanity, conditioning human minds through oppression and conquest. They lack empathy and share a thirst for power and control, similar to the custodians. Tensions between these two races might benefit other worlds under their dominion. Venusians, the original inhabitants of Venus, also known as the Venusians, survived colonization unlike the Martians. Legends suggest early humans sought an alliance with the Venusians to resist the colonizers, but this was disrupted when the custodians colonized the walled lands. Some theories propose that early humans escaped to Venus, where Venusians focused their technology on spiritual development rather than warfare. When custodians invaded Venus, they encountered a relentless storm, finding no Venusians on the surface. They had hidden underground in technologically advanced bunkers. The custodians, unable to overcome the storm and underground defenses, faced heavy casualties, and eventually they retreated. Despite their advanced technology, custodians failed to conquer Venus. A significant custodial leader reportedly ended up meeting with a Venusian leader, the Venusian leader pleading for peace and the liberation of humans. But the custodian leader, it was a staunch no, leading to the custodian's departure with significant losses. This story spread throughout the realm, and then people tried to imitate this storm in other circle environments, but it resulted in disastrous outcomes. The Venusians' resilience and advanced underground technology marked a rare victory against the custodians, highlighting their ability to protect their world and their people. Next, we have the Draco, also known as the Edemeans, inhabit the Draco lands located northwest of the known lands. These beings, once visitors to our lands, are renowned for their advanced weaponry and significant psychic development. Some of them possess telepathic abilities, which they use to subdue enemies or colonize other lands. Through a treaty, Edemeans allied with the Custodians, but initially, the Custodians attacked when the Draco were not at their peak. The Draco lands consist of 2 large continents with lush vegetation and exotic plants. A great wall of ice left by the Custodians surrounds their territory, but did not prevent the Draco from conquering lands like Osiris and Anubis. Their technology flourished, especially on the Paradise Islands of Anubis, where they established military bases. Land of Mars. Behind the ice walls of Mars lies a vast world. Historically significant to humanity, Mars was home to a diverse civilization before being annihilated by colonizers. The Martians, known for their technological and spiritual advancement, chose to die in battle rather than submit to colonization. The Anunnaki, surprised by their total resistance, learned from this first colonization. They had never seen a being stand up like that before. They found it to be noble. Today, Mars is an experimental land where multiple races coexist and engage in constant conflict. The leaders, both Anunnaki and Custodians, oversee the entire region. A human colony exists, mostly composed of those who betrayed their race for survival. Notable among them, Admiral Richard Byrd, who confessed some truce before surrendering completely. Mars also hosts the Grey aliens and Draco colonies. Rivalries exist among the Greys, human colonists, and other races, monitored closely by the Custodians and Anunnaki. Mars, like other circle environments, experiences time differently, making human passage there a one-way ticket to a long life, approximately 500 years by Earth's comparison. The Custodians moved many races to Mars during their conquests, turning it into a large zoo for studying behaviors, conflicts, and race interactions under close surveillance. The lands of Pegasus. Now, this is crazy. situated near Jupiter and Hercules, have been significant challenge for several races. The beings born there, known for their wings, focused their technology on exploration rather than weaponry for attack and defense. This proved to be the wrong move when they encountered the custodians who invaded the circle environment. The custodians were astonished to find these beings, known as the Lanteans, effortlessly gliding through the air with their metallic wings, which moved almost like a dance across the firmament of the beautiful world. Conquering these lands required little effort. The custodians, Lanteans named after their central lands, struck a deal with them. The custodians ultimately harmed them. They lost much of their mineral wealth and shared their technological advancements, unwittingly aiding in the custodians in penetrating the celestial lands. The Lanteans realized too late the true intentions of their colonizers, leading to several revolts that ended up in massacres of the winged beings. There are varying accounts of their fate. Some claim the Lanteans ceased to exist, while others suggest they survived and are mistaken for angels from nearby lands. Also close to Jupiter, distinguished by their large white wings. The Lanteans are characterized by their long white hair and significant development in alchemy and science. Generally non-hostile to other races, they reached the brink of extinction due to their resistance against their oppressors.
Some of you may remember on TikTok when this Russian gentleman shared his findings while working construction on the beach. If you take a look at the video, just notice the detail is impeccable, like nothing we've ever seen. So much so that you can see the strings on his cloak dangling, but they are literally petrified. The wings on this being, and its height, it's probably 9 feet tall. There was something telling me when I first saw it there was more to it than it just being a statue. I truly believe that this now petrified being was absolutely once alive, and I believe it is exactly what they're talking about. It's from Pegasus, and it is absolutely a Lantean. Just a theory, of course.
Nerida, Triton, and Poseidon are the names of the lands that gleam in the dark atmosphere surrounding their circle environment. But because of the harsh storms and arid conditions of their world, large portions of their lands remain uninhabited, with major cities built on the most fertile grounds. Despite this, the Neptunians have created colossal structures, some towering twice the height of those in the known lands. Silence pervades this dark world, where the sun is an opaque presence. Technological advancements have enabled the Neptunians to overcome their environment's challenges. Tall buildings and numerous pyramids, legacies of Anunnaki colonization, dominate their cities. The Anunnaki, known for deceitful technology exchanges, eventually betrayed and colonized the Neptunians, stripping them of their resources overnight. The Neptunians, initially focused on spiritual and personal development, also had significant military capabilities. However, these paled in comparison to the Anunnaki's superior technology. Defeated, the Neptunians were forced into servitude, benefiting their colonizers until they eventually rebelled. Fierce battles ensued, with Triton becoming a chaotic epicenter where much Neptunian blue blood was spilled. The Anunnaki remained their enemies, though a truce was eventually reached, leading to the Anunnaki's withdrawal. Today, the Neptunians enjoy peace and high technological development that benefits their environment and spiritual growth. They maintain peaceful relations with neighboring lands and races, but remain vigilant against potential threats from the Anunnaki or others. Do the Neptunians travel to the other lands? It is said they explore other territories to learn about different races and establish connections, though they haven't visited the known lands or communicated with its leaders. They are familiar with Mars and have contacted the human colony there. The Neptunians are dark blue in color and subsist on local fruits as their system doesn't process a wide variety of foods. They are vegetarians and maintain a somewhat friendly relationship with the custodians, a curiosity given their strong desire for freedom. The Uranians, or the Uranites, have pinkish skin and dark eyes. Though some have entirely white eyes that may appear visually impaired, in reality their vision is hyperdeveloped, allowing them to see great distances and explore other lands. Despite their exceptional eyesight, they have not achieved significant technological or spiritual advancement yet. Uranites endure long winters, extremely low temperatures for most of their local year, which is roughly equivalent to 42 known land years. They are long-lived beings, but their lifespan has decreased due to the strange diseases resulting from laboratory alterations and body manipulations by the custodians. The custodians invaded their world when Uranites were in the early stages of development. Initially uninterested in them or their minerals, the custodians' interest surged upon discovering vast quantities of valuable minerals beneath Uranian lands. Uranium, maybe? This led to massive excavations, leaving the surface scarred by custodial machinery, with local forces to work under severe conditions, almost as slaves. Due to this exploitation, Uranites experienced minimal development. The custodians ensured that the Uranites remained undeveloped to prevent any moderate progress. Today, Uranites are mostly concentrated in their core land, Titania. They are generally giant beings, standing 4 to 5 meters tall, with 2 very long arms. They feed exclusively on vegetables grown in their lands and surrounding areas. The surrounding lands have a climate similar to Neptune's lands, characterized by harsh conditions. Despite their resilience, Uranites remain under custodial dominance, struggling with the manipulated environment and the diseases that have plagued them since the custodians' arrival. In this vast circle environment, several lands each host unique ways of life. The natives strongly identify with their birthlands and are clearly divided, having experienced significant internal conflicts in the past. These constant internal wars stem from the Anunnaki's early invasion of their lands. The majority of the population who currently rule reside in the central area known as the Land of Zeus. Historical accounts suggest that a high-ranking Anunnaki leader lived there or still lives there, along with leaders from the Jupiter lands. The Zeus-born and Europeans govern and keep the other populations in perpetual conflict, using division to maintain control and manipulate the civilization. Metis is exclusively reserved for the leaders, with no other beings being allowed to enter without permission. The inhabitants have developed advanced destructive weapons for attack and defense but lack spiritual development. Adhering to a hierarchical pyramid system instituted early by the Anunnaki pyramids are omnipresent in these lands, symbolizing the clear control of the parasitic race. Contact with humans on the known Earths occurred long ago, specifically the 3 resets or 3 reboots ago. These beings exhibit hostility towards most other races and have had several conflicts with the custodians. They have extensively studied humans, possessing large laboratories with advanced scientific capabilities for modification and manipulation. These beings are short. I think they're the Zeta Reticuli, if I want to say. In stature, 1.4 to 5 meters, known for their distinctive eyes and large bulbous heads. They are carnivorous, primarily feeding on animals born on the surface of their lands. In Aldebaran B, the Taurinos or the Taurines reside reminiscent of the Minotaur from ancient myths, with bull heads and human bodies. They embody the mythological image and upon closer examination reveal a direct connection to humans in past resets. Historically, giants' tales suggested that Taurinos fed on human flesh. However, in recent times, Taurines have proven to be benevolent beings who ended custodial rule long ago. Due to their actions, the Taurines are not well regarded by the dominant races within the Great Dome. They have saved numerous races and species from extinction, particularly those unable to reach their full potential due to parasitic attacks. Despite several attempts to alter their genetic material, their empathy and love for life in other worlds remained unchanged. Initially, this was not the case, leading to significant internal wars within their territory. Carnivorous beings, Taurines are now scattered across various circle environments. They have always been dedicated to spiritual development and possess extensive knowledge of exploration ships and weaponry. Helen has a direct contact with some of the Taurines, and they have lived with the Anakim giants for a long time, sharing their technology and wisdom with us and aiding our survival after the Great War. Despite their contributions, giants, Taurines, Titans, and other beings are often depicted as evil in human stories, feeding on pain, suffering, or flesh, a truth in the distant past. These imposing figures are frequently rejected in the new humanity due to these representations. Taurines can reach up to 4.5 to 5 meters in height and are distinguished by their large horns, often cut when young. Aldebaran A supports animal and plant life, but Taurines avoid living there due to a violent past marked by extensive bloodshed. A massive internal war between beings from both lands led to complete extinction in Aldebaran A. Out of respect for the memory of those lost, the Taurines decide not to inhabit these lands at all. And last but most certainly not least, my favorite, the Saturnians are incredibly tall beings, 25 feet tall, with some reaching even taller. Their advanced psychic abilities coupled with their imposing physical presence make them exceptionally powerful. Due to their significant technological advancements and inherent strength, they have never been conquered by any parasitic race. The Saturnians, even those living on the rings, remained largely unvisited and overlooked until the Anunnaki finally gave it a try. When the Anunnaki attempted to establish dominance, they quickly realized the futility of their efforts due to the formidable nature of the Saturnians. Emerging from a period of extensive wars, particularly in the known lands, the Anunnaki were in no position for another large-scale conflict. Recognizing the strength and resilience of the Saturnians, they opted for a peaceful relationship. Interestingly enough, When the Anunnaki sought leaders among the Saturnians, they discovered that the traditional hierarchical structure they were accustomed to didn't exist. The Saturnians operated collectively, making decisions through their immense psychic power, ensuring the benefit of their race. Their unity was unbreakable. The Saturnians possessed highly advanced exploration ships and shared considerable knowledge about the Great Dome with the Anunnaki. However, they refused to assist in the penetration of celestial lands, which they, like many other races, consider sacred. Physically, the Saturnians are formidable beings with a bluish hue covering most of their bodies and white tones on their abdomens. Throughout various resets, they visited the known lands multiple times, weaving countless stories now mixed with mythology due to the custodial manipulation. Some Saturnians have been immortalized on large stones, mountains, or trees, bearing the scars of ancient custodial technology. Alongside the Anakim, the Saturnians are feared by both the custodians and the Anunnaki, as they pose a significant threat to any plans of conquering the celestial lands. So there you have it, y'all. That shit is crazy, right? And it gets better. It's going to start getting back more into Captain Butler and William Morris. I want to give a thorough cover of the book. I want to thoroughly cover everything. I want you guys to know about all the different beings. I want you guys to be aware of what they are and who they are and what they mean. Ultimately, I'm just following this book because it's so amazing. It's whether it's fiction, it says it's fiction online, so do what you will with that. Ultimately, I'm always for entertainment purposes only, may or may not be true. I just find the information and let you decide. And this is always a popular subject, the lands beyond the ice wall. It's always fascinating, y'all. And I'm glad to be back doing it. It's going to be a long road to cover everything, which I'm glad. It'll be intriguing and fun. And it gets a lot better than this, y'all. It gets wild quick. So make sure you stay tuned and keep watching me, y'all. I'm working on my eye contact and stuff like that. I'm working on, kind of getting better with my scripts, so bear with me. This is just a new style for me. I'm not used to it, but it seems to be what YouTubers want. So that's where I'm at. Stay in the love, stay in the light, be kind to others, y'all. I am out.
This is the legend of the navigator across the ice walls and the domes beyond the 178 worlds. Helen stood at the helm of the command ship, her eyes burning with determination as the infinite waters stretched before her. The weight of her father's death pressed upon her, but it did not break her. It forged her. She had no choice but to carry on in his name. The custodians and Anunnaki had taken the known lands, but she would not let them keep it. If humanity was to be free, they needed allies, and they needed to form these alliances as quickly as possible. She and Butler wasted no time. They assembled a fleet of 15 ocean-bearing vessels, their hulls reinforced with Cassiopean technology. These were not ordinary ships. They were crafted for the treacherous journey ahead, equipped with defenses to repel whatever horrors lay beyond. Alongside them, 8 Iron Blues, their sleek airborne counterparts, would provide overwatch, one for every 2 ships, ensuring no crew was left defenseless. Their mission: to reach as many worlds within their dome and to forge alliances with beings who could help them reclaim the known lands. 7 destinations lay before them: Arcturus, Andromeda, Vant, Pegasus, Hercules, Saturn, and Homam. As they prepared to depart, word came from the Cassiopeians.
What's going on, y'all? You know the drill. This is for entertainment purposes only, may or may not be true. I just provide the information and let you decide. Please do me a solid and subscribe, hit that notification bell so you get notified every time I post, and make sure you like, comment, and interact. Help push this video as far as possible. Thank you guys, enjoy.
A revelation that gave all of them a glimmer of hope. They had intercepted a custodian transmission, confirming that they, alongside the Anunnaki, were able to breach the Great Barrier Membrane. This was the first time any faction of the 178 worlds had done so successfully. What they found beyond the 178 worlds were not 1, but 6 other realms, each encased with its own great dome. The custodians and Anunnaki, emboldened by their discovery, wasted no time in starting their incursion, colonizing parasites, Helen thought to herself. But were they prepared for what forces they could face beyond our dome? Reports from intercepted messages painted a grim picture for the Anunnaki and custodian campaign. They had encountered beings beyond their reckoning, a species more advanced than anything they had ever seen, even more advanced than themselves. Helen clenched her fists. This was their chance. If these beings opposed the custodians, perhaps they could be turned into allies in humanity's fight for freedom. The fleet split into 7 groups, each bound for a different world. Each carried a sense of purpose, but one would never reach its destination. Not long after passing the Infinite Lands, an unknown enemy appeared on their radar. Enemy ships, sleek and deadly, emerged from the mist, cutting through the waters like spectral predators. The missing crew was never heard from again, but the others, they had to press on. Andromeda, the spiritual warriors. The first group arrived in Andromeda, a realm of profound spiritual enlightenment. The beings there divided into 2 factions, M31 and NGC. They had long aided humans in the past before the resets, before history was rewritten. Their mastery of the inner path granted them abilities beyond our comprehension. Despite their differences, the 2 factions did not clash. They were uplifters of lesser races, defenders of those who sought freedom. The Custodians and Anunnaki had tried to subjugate them before. They failed. Helen's comrades met with the leaders, and when they spoke of war, the Andromedans did not hesitate. We have seen the cycles of enslavement. We will not allow it again. They would stand with us against the oppressors. Arcturus, masters of the mind. The second group's journey was far more perilous. The infinite waters were not kind. Colossal sea creatures, their eyes like burning stars, surfaced beneath the ships, their tendrils sweeping across the decks. The crew was forced to unleash their secret weapon, a sonic disruptor that sent shockwaves stunning the Leviathan-like creatures long enough to escape. Then came the waves. Walls of water, 50 feet high, crashed over them as the ships fought against the dark abyss herself. Battered and bruised, but unbroken. When they arrived, the Arcturians greeted them as equals. These beings, with their elongated skulls and piercing minds, had clashed with the Anunnaki for eons. They had mastered the mind, wielding an intelligence that surpassed most civilizations. Their world, a massive continent with 4 distinct regions. These regions had long been a battleground. These beings did not fear war, they welcomed it, and they would assist the ancestors as well in liberating mankind. Pegasus, the fallen kingdom. Once, the Lanteans of Pegasus soared through the skies with wings forged from the rarest metals in their lands. Their craftsmanship was unparalleled, their technology as beautiful as it was deadly. But now, they were prisoners in their own world. The Custodians had taken their lands, ravaging their people. Diseases spread, engineered to keep them weak. The fight was all but lost, as they were on the verge of extinction, until Helen's crew arrived. Help us regain our strength. Share with us your medicine and give us time to replenish what we have lost, and we will stand beside you. A deal was struck. The Cassiopeans provided them with the technology to cure their ailments, and in return, their warriors would join the resistance. The next group, Hercules, the amphibian warriors. The beings of Hercules had resisted custodian colonization for as long as they could, but even the mightiest warriors had limits. Their lands were divided, scattered, and broken, yet they did not bow. Their bodies, a fusion of humanoid and amphibian features. They were striking. They were all female, but their strength unmatched. Their technology, it was barely beyond primitive. Helen's people did not hesitate. They gifted them advancements to help them level the battlefield, and in return, they gained an army of unyielding fighters. The betrayal in the lost land. As the missions neared success, Helen woke to a sense of dread. Rushing to the operations room, she was met with grim faces. 2 ships had been sunk. They weren't taken by the Anunnaki or the Custodians. They were destroyed by the Etamines, also known as the Tall Whites. Missiles launched from an autonomous defense system. Cruel, calculated strike. Helen's heart sank, but Butler steadied her. We mourn the fallen, but we do not stop. Helen felt responsible. Butler calmed her, explaining their sacrifice would not be in vain. They continued to press on. Their journey took them to Cadmo, a place lost in time. There, the statues stood, frozen in horror. Once they had been living beings, now petrified echoes of a forgotten past. They had gazed at the sky in terror, and whatever they saw left them eternal in silence. Helen could feel the sadness in the air. This was not just a battlefield. It was a graveyard. Helen was able to convince her comrade Rock on the way back to take a tour to Demiro. They found out quickly as they landed, this place was devoid of intelligent life. Instead, there were beasts. The creatures devoured each other as they approached. And then they appeared. Wolf-like beings, 3-legged and ravenous. One lunged, sinking its fangs into Rock's hand. He quickly pulled his weapon and put it to the beast's chest, firing a beam that cut through the beast as if it was no more dense than the air around them. The sound ripped through the silence. The others immediately fled. They had seen enough. They left Demiro behind. As they regrouped, they got some more good news. After intercepting another transmission from the custodians, they and the Anunnaki were taking on mass casualties. The beings beyond the domes were not just resisting, they were winning. Helen could only hope they would fall completely, but she knew hope was not enough. If the custodians fell, there was still a risk. These new civilizations could turn their gaze upon their own dome. The custodians put our entire realm at risk. Would they be allies or colonizers themselves? Helen needed to meet them before it was too late. But according to the information they were receiving from the custodian transmissions, the most powerful being of them all were not malevolent. They were benevolent. And perhaps, just perhaps, they were humanity's last hope in defeating the Anunnaki and the custodians.
The following dome we're going to cover is called the Dome of the Hiva. Deep within the mysterious lands of the Terra lies the Dome of the Hiva, home to an ancient and powerful species known as the Rapa Nui. These beings have reached an extraordinary level of technological advancement, mastering the manipulation of portals. This allows them to travel seamlessly between domes. Their knowledge spans the farthest corners of the Terra, yet their society is built not just on technology, but on spiritual growth as a collective. Though peaceful, the Rapa Nui are not defenseless. Any species that enters their dome with ill intentions will be swiftly crushed, for they have the means to protect their sacred lands. For millennia, they coexisted in harmony, though their history is not without conflict. Over time, they learned to resolve disputes, allowing them to flourish as one of the most advanced civilizations in the dome worlds. Next, the Polans, a civilization rebuilt. The Polans, the inhabitants of a great city within their own dome, have endured countless wars, battles so devastating that their very existence was nearly erased. However, after centuries of turmoil, they found peace. Despite being considered an aquatic species, they remain highly advanced, particularly in warfare and defense. Their history is marked by a significant war against the southern half of their dome, with one of the most infamous battles being the Great Battle of Najarani. Through the conflicts, they have explored vast regions, not only within their own dome, but beyond into the Dome of the Shiva, the Five Peaks, and even the 178 known worlds. Their alliances with species like Lacerda and Hydra shaped their destiny, though some speculate they may have played a role in Hydra's extinction. Since the second reset, their contact with humanity has been minimal, and much of their current society remains engulfed in mystery. The Ariki Mahu lands. Named after their leader, Ariki, this region stands as a testament to survival. Ariki is revered for having saved his people from a massive flood, guiding them to higher ground before their former city was swallowed by the ocean. As the remnants of the old civilization disappeared beneath the waves, a new land emerged, one that may have given rise to the modern Rapa Nui. Today, some of these beings are found in the southern regions of the dome, maintaining their traditions and ensuring their survival amidst ever-changing landscapes. The Maghudis, the reclusive ones. Little is known about the Maghudis, an enigmatic species with A5 level technological advancements in both attack and defense. Their society is deeply spiritual, and while they once clashed with the Polanders, they have since become isolationists, remaining confined to their dome with no interest in exploration or contact with any other species, including humanity. Hanga Valley, a land of ruin and survival. Hanga Valley, once a lush and mineral-rich land, now lies in ruins, its environment barren due to the brutal wars of the past. The beings that inhabit this valley, known as the Hanga, struggle for survival, relying on aid from other species. Despite their hardships, the Hanga have shown resilience. Their lands once held P341X, a powerful portal, capable of transporting matter across domes. While its true purpose remains unknown, it is widely believed that they have traveled extensively across ancient Earth, possibly being the beings associated with the mysteries of Easter Island. Living for over 1,000 years, their tree-like forms move slowly, their gray and brown hues blending into the landscape. While they possess immense knowledge of the Vinita lands and the lesser-known races of the Terra, they have remained neutral in major conflicts, yet their power is undeniable. If they wish to conquer, they could do so effortlessly. The Psychic Masters. The beings of Tukamora are small in stature, but their psychic abilities and technological advances make them formidable. With 6-tier spiritual development, they were the first to wage war against the Polans during their early development. Their bodies are reddish, their eyes a piercing yellow, and their mastery over both offense and defense has made them a force to be reckoned with. Though they no longer seek war, their past battles shape the balance of power within their domed world. The dome under the portals and the 5 peaks.
This dome has become the latest mission for the custodians, who believe it holds a profound connection to the celestial lands, perhaps even to the Dome of the Forgotten Gods. However, the Northern Dome's beings have made exploration difficult. The Guardians of the Portal, known as RC2 and RC3, maintain strict control over the area. It is rumored that the Lennox lead this dome and has ties to the divine lands of Shiva, Vishnu, Lakshmi, and Parvati, though this remains unconfirmed. Among the few who can access this realm are the beings of the Five Peaks. Their scientific laboratories have granted them extraordinary psychic abilities and the ability to modify their own bodies, making them one of the most unique races in existence. The Dome of Silence, a forbidden mystery. The Dome of Silence remains an enigma. No one truly knows what lies within, as the Great War between parasitic species and the Dome civilizations had made exploration nearly impossible. Scans suggest that no life or advanced structures exist within, but many believe that something unknown lurks beyond our reach, perhaps something far older than we can even imagine. Next is the Dome of the Titans, a legacy of giants. Among all the domes, the Dome of the Titans is the most similar to our world. Within its vast expanse, 69 worlds exist under its protective membranes, each one uniquely designed to support life. Here, colossal beings, ranging from 12.5 to 19 meters tall, roam freely. Their strength surpasses that of any other known species. Of the 69 worlds, 14 are used solely for survival, and only those species that reach a certain level of development can leave their dome and seek out the bloodlines, the key to their survival. Without reaching the bloodlines in time, entire species face extinction, only to be reborn under the same conditions in a never-ending cycle. While 9 races have successfully unlocked the bloodlines, many others continue to perish, unable to break free from their fate. Curiously, despite their struggles, there are no great wars among the Titans. Each species must survive on its own, without aid from others. It is an unwritten law. Only those who prove themselves may ascend. This is the greatest mystery of the other domes. Could there be an even deeper secret hidden within the dome worlds? The answers remain elusive, but one thing is certain. The truth about our origins and the forces that shape our existence may lie within these domes. Tanakh, the most powerful beings of their dome. Their technology is so advanced that hardly any neighbor will face them. Their process and development is based on spirituality, so they stay out of conflict with the neighboring beings. The Dome of the Forgotten Gods. No physical being can enter it. They believe these gods or lands are where the human soul's essence may come from. Shiva, Vishnu, Lakshmi, Parvati, and a name we cannot mention, and hopefully Shaki along with that. They want to keep them out of the dome of the portals because they don't agree with the use of it. It's said the custodians have been forced out of these areas because they cannot keep up with the Tanakhis, and their technological advancement is too great. Their advancement is an A7. They are a humanoid fish species, and they are currently in battle against the Anunnaki and custodians, also the Greys. The Dome of the Shal. This particular dome, which can be found by heading to the north end of the Great Dome of 178 Worlds, where there's a passage made by a keeper just north of the land of Wasp. The navigation is by the ether, the dark matter.
The Dome of the Shal contains lands
that are encompassed by one large dome, just as we know ours are, but instead of each circle environment having one, their lands are wide open, with just one massive membrane surrounding them. The following is a summary of all the lands within the Shal. First beings we'll discuss are the Aralu. They inhabit the Arctic lands of the Aralu landmass, where the temperature can range anywhere from -30 to -85 degrees Celsius. The beings are referred to as the Araluans. They are considered a humanoid fish species. Technologically, they are considered a 3. They have conflict with neighboring beings of Assyria, while they are at peace with the Tanakhis, beings of the southern land of Tanakh. They are also in conflict with Endor and the beings that Endor has moved in. The Araluans have explored all lands of the Shal, but never ventured outside of their Great Dome. They have only colonized a couple land masses within the Shal. They have no contact with humans up to date. There's also the Gehenna. Summary, neighbors of the Aralu. Their lands are full of volcanic ashes, while the majority of the lands are frozen with a constant winter. They inhabit both the northern and southern part of their lands, while leaving the middle uninhabited due to being too harsh of conditions. They are a humanoid fish species as well. The Gehennacites is what they are referred to as. They are in danger of going extinct due to reproductive issues. Technologically, they're a level 3, and they are explorers with no current conflicts. Born adventurers and travelers who are the second to break through their Great Barrier Membrane. They've also explored the 178 worlds of our dome, and may have a colony in the land of Wasp, known as the Aldulfin. Dolphin. Next beings are the Sal, Beings extinct by internal past wars, they began their development as early as the Endors, but could not resolve their differences, eventually annihilating their own race. Abaddons. These beings are in the early stages of development. The Shakat. These beings were taken over by the Araluans. Hatusa. These beings are also early in development. Anguis. Lands where the worst battles under that dome have taken place. Then we have the Endor. These are very technologically advanced beings that developed early on. They are humanoid fish, possibly could die off due to reproductive issues. They're level 3 technologically, and they are explorers who have had conflicts with the Araluans for the lands of Sol, along with other beings within their Great Dome, even battling in our realm against the Pollux, foreign colonizers that take advantage of weaker races. They've possibly contacted humanity in the past. So crazy stuff, right? It blows my mind that they're discovering all of these other worlds, and that the Anunnaki and the custodians may have finally met their match. This is good for Earth. It's good for the known land masses and names and legends and just the way things fall into place. For example, Pegasus, the metal wings that they made. Well, what do we have today that has metal wings? Falcon from Marvel. All ideas are rooted in something. What's happening, y'all? It's your boy Night God 333 Secrets Revealed, bringing you the most fringe content on the internet. If it's your first time here and you like the unknown and unexplained, do me a solid, subscribe, like, hit that notification bell so you get notified every time I post, because you don't want to miss any of my upcoming content. I promise. Please do me a solid, guys. Like, subscribe, comment on this post, get us some interaction, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you get notified every time I post. It helps the channel immensely. Thank you, guys. Love you. Hope you enjoy this video. This is the legend of the navigator who crossed the ice walls and the 14,000. Lands of the Orion, located to the west of the known lands, as you can see behind me. These lands are dominated by beings known as the Greys, typically small in stature, standing between 1.3 and 1.4 meters in height. They are highly advanced, both psychologically, telepathically, and scientifically, boasting laboratories that are among the most sophisticated within the entire Great Dome. The Greys possess extensive knowledge of many races, obtained through relentless experimentation, and the Custodians have frequently exploited this expertise in their obsessive pursuit and attempts to penetrate the celestial lands. Despite their efforts, all attempts have failed, leading to many Greys turning their focus to analyses on humans. They conduct abductions and genetic tests, lacking empathy and often exhibiting hostility towards us. Compassion from them is rare, and numerous abductees report terrifying experiences. The Greys have been experimenting on humans for a long time, thousands of years, even before the last reset and previous ones. They are closely related to the beings from Zeta Reticuli, with their races intermingling and coexisting today. In the past, the Anunnaki colonized the beings of Zeta Reticuli, utilizing them for exploration, while the Orion Greys continue and served the Custodians. Prior to the Great War, the Greys briefly controlled the known lands in place of the Custodians, while they and the Anunnaki leaders were at war over a disagreement. The war lasted approximately 5,000 years. Eventually, this would lead to the Giants and humans initiating an uprising against the Greys. This was during the era of the Great Advanced Tartary, a period of free energy and superior technology. Their ships were destroyed by the thousands each day, so the Greys, unable to keep the Tartarians at bay, eventually had to relay this news to the Custodians, and had to tell them they lost control of the known lands. Ultimately, they were expelled from the known lands by the Giants. When the already rebellious humans revolted, defeating the Orion Greys, they inadvertently empowered the Tartarians, causing a much harder fought battle for the Custodians afterwards. Mind you, they were just coming off of another war. This fostered a mutual hatred between the Giants and the Greys, a sentiment that persists today despite occasional meetings. During this war, the greatest leader of the Greys perished in the known lands. This intensified their animosity towards humanity and the Tartarians. Eventually, the Greys would be allowed to colonize independent lands again, but the Custodians treat them accordingly for their plight of the known lands, while they were supposed to be in charge. They have never trusted them to look over any other circle environment ever again in their stead. Despite their hostility towards humans, in recent history, there was a technological exchange between Grey alien leaders and humans. But unfortunately, this technology fell into the wrong hands, that being the cloning ability, and the elite used it destructively. Greys are also present in the Mars lands, a joint experimental site controlled by the Custodians and the Anunnaki. Human colonists there frequently clashed with the Greys and were consistently defeated. The Greys survived through cloning and functioned robotically, devoid of emotions or empathy, and nearly faced total extermination in the recent past. Next, we have the Pleiadians. These are tall beings, similar in appearance to the Norse from Norse mythology, believed to be descendants of those who survived the Battle of Asgard against the Custodians and fled to the Pleiades. Generally benevolent towards humans, they made a peace pact with the Anunnaki early in their development. Despite their spiritual focus and efforts to improve living conditions, Pleiadians suffer from natural disasters thought to be manipulated and facilitated by the Anunnaki, probably through pyramids. Their lands face accelerated destruction, possibly forcing them to seek refuge in the known lands. Although they visit occasionally, they are uncomfortable coexisting with humans and have failed to find a suitable alternative home. Next, we have the land of the clones, the second Earth. This peculiar world, known as the first Mars Earth, began as an experimental project. Initially left unused, it later became a model for the Mars Earths. The Anunnaki were the first to explore this unique circle environment, discovering primitive life forms. The planet was initially used to relocate dominant races for conflict resolution and interracial development experiments. Unfortunately, these efforts failed, nearly leading to its destruction. Subsequently, it served as a cloning ground to preserve the lives of important leaders across various races, earning its name. However, a crisis arose when the cloned beings, including humans, escaped. These clones, devoid of feelings or empathy, caused significant unrest across worlds. Today, this experimental land is abandoned, one of the many forgotten territories that might one day be repurposed. The Pleiadians have considered it for mass relocation, but the conditions are unknown, and the abandoned laboratories leave its future uncertain. They say that some of the beings may still be living there, and who knows what type of abominations were created and left to breed and interbreed and become something chimera-esque, if you will. The next faction we're going to talk about is similar to that of the Custodians. They are often called this same exact thing, reptilians. I believe that the reptilians are actually just more primitive versions of the Custodians. Often confused with the Anunnaki, reptilians are distinct beings who reside far from the known lands. Despite occasional contact with leaders in other worlds, they prefer isolation, living mostly in underground homes. They are advanced and hostile towards humans. They establish subterranean bases for future use, utilizing their superior technology for monitoring us. Their primary domain is the Lacerta lands, although many prefer the island nearby, where they have constructed a vast underground city. Historically, they have engaged in significant wars with the Anunnaki and are known for their advanced weaponry. Respected by colonizers, they have never been subjugated or used for menial tasks. If a future conflict with humanity arises, they might ally with the Custodians. So when I hear that they are underground dwellers and they dig and build subterranean cities, I can't help but think about the subterranean city under, I want to say LA, where somebody explored the catacombs and they found reptilian skulls, a bunch of gold, and basically a subterranean city below LA. I'm imagining that these are the same beings, right, that built this subterranean city under LA. Next, we have the Celestial Lands. Many worlds are excluded from this book, but will be detailed soon. Numerous extraterrestrial races struggle to survive in a system where fate seems governed by chance. Despite this, some worlds experience peace and development, possibly due to lesser interest from the parasitic races or their unnoticed development. Other lands, as discussed, were devastated by the parasites before they could fully develop. Their history stained with blood, and their futures irrevocably altered. Humanity's spirit remains unbroken despite losing its kingdom long ago. The ongoing spiritual depletion threatens our existence, not physically, but by eroding our awareness of our potential. We must learn from races that overcame their oppressors and adopt their techniques to resist manipulation and oppression. Many are willing to aid humanity's awakening and liberation. Colonizers fear us because they cannot manipulate our essence, our soul, only our physical surroundings. It is time to awaken and realize our true potential. Why don't official sources inform us about these worlds, and why do they visit our lands? These questions are somewhat complex, but an attempt to answer them can easily be made. There are many continents hidden behind what is known as barriers or walls. These barriers can be made of ice, like those in Antarctica, or mountains. There are several types of these barriers, both within the known world and beyond it. Helen has visited these lands numerous times and considers herself part of our world. Her ancestors visited other worlds repeatedly, encountering thousands of races in both friendly and cruel ways. Helen feels a deep connection to our lands, as her ancestors were born and lived here until the end. Since childhood, she has been motivated by the idea of returning to the soil and the earth of her mother and grandparents, who sacrificed their lives for the freedom of their race. Helen's father, William Morris, was born in these lands, like many others. He was fortunate enough to cross the artificial ice walls imposed by the same parasites that control them today and managed to find their ancestral lands. Referred to as the Ancestral Republic, there he met Helen's mother and formed a great family. Helen cherishes the memories of her dear father and hopes that over time, more people will come to know about the lands where she was born, the ancestral lands. Helen's father, at the age of 34 and with significant experience in the Continental Navy, met a man named Butler. Butler, Captain Butler, who had also been born in Helen's homeland, was infiltrated in those lands. For reasons undisclosed, Butler assembled a team experienced in warfare and maritime navigation. Despite numerous complications and threats, they managed to enter the polar zone, cross the ice walls, and find their ancestral lands. Helen's father succeeded more easily under the guidance of Butler, an experienced captain well versed in the route. Contrary to the seemingly random events described in The Navigators Who Crossed the Ice Walls, Butler was a seasoned navigator and a leader of the Naval Council in Helen's homeland. He had visited the known lands many times, contributing significantly to the plan he devised with Helen's father to infiltrate and execute their mission. Together they fought for their homeland, which they cherished despite the oppressive ruling race that hindered its development, the Custodians. Helen believes these lands rightfully belong to the true humanity, not those who blindly follow imposed rules. That's us. According to the decrees from the celestial lands to Hyperborea, humans should not seek escape but rather subdue and expel their colonizers. Recognizing the complexity of this task, an alternative plan was to relocate humanity before the next reset. The known lands and many foreign continents carry different names than those taught in stories. Despite some mythical elements, Helen prefers the name Ancestral Republic for her homeland, representing the surviving human ancestors from before the last reset, the Great Tartary. Her ancestors were born before the walls of ice, fought and sometimes died there. Countless tales of great heroes forged in these lands persist, just as heroes have emerged in Helen's homeland who perform great deeds in these regions. Helen speaks English, though a different native language is primarily spoken in her homeland's main city. Many languages from the known lands are also spoken there. Her parents fled these lands to start anew in the outer lands, escaping from all corners of the known world. Initially, communities formed based on culture, creating their own languages and cultures to foster unity and avoid divisions among ancestral humans. Over time, many adopted the native language, often forgetting their forefathers' tongues, particularly in larger cities, though efforts continued to preserve connections with the past. Helen's parents escaped the worst war ever seen, having no alternative but to flee or die. Her grandfather perished in that battle, and her mother escaped as a small child in her grandmother's arms, with many saved by the giants, for which they are eternally grateful. The giant race joined humanity during the previous reset, coming from outside to free them from the oppressive custodians. Those giants would be the Anakim, a very, very old race of giants, very highly technologically advanced. These beings are feared by the Anunnaki and the reptilians. In one of his most recent books, Mr. Nocelli provided us with a, of course, fictional timeline of humanity, how long they lasted, when they were established, when they were reset, and the cycle length. I found this to be very, very enlightening and intriguing. So let's go ahead and go over it. First humanity of Hyperborea, Asgard. Asgard, I will show you on a map here, was the start of 14,000 BC. So 14,000 years before Christ. That's not that long ago, guys, if you think about it. If you really sit back and think about it. The way we build our timelines, that's not very long ago. The reset was in 542 BC, down to the exact year. The cycle length, 1,458 years. So could you imagine, back then, these beings lived 253, maybe even 400 years old, you'd have a pretty good chance of catching a reset if you live that long, right? It's kind of a crazy thought. After that reset, wow, they established the first generation the same year. So what they do is, allegedly, they wipe out everybody except for the infants that are a year old or younger, or 7 months old or younger. They keep them, they raise them, and they reestablish the population with them. First generation, start, same year. Reset, 11,089. Cycle length, almost exact down to the year, about 5 years earlier than the last. Second generation, 1189 before Christ. Reset, 9531 BC. Cycle length, they got a little extra out of this one, 1558 years. So there's an obvious pattern here, close to a millennium and a half. Third generation, again, established and started the same year as the reset. Now the resets here aren't all floods either, keep in mind. A lot of them were nuclear. So the third generation established, and the cycle length was 1475 years. The fourth generation, now we're getting a little better, 1681 years, getting a little lax. The fifth generation, now this is the generation that almost got our lands back permanently. So the sixth generation, 4742 BC, reset, 1728 AD. You heard me right. 4742 before Christ. Status 2024, cycle time to date, 296 years. So hopefully we got a lot of time left, but they can reset us at any time, allegedly. Summary of resets. Reset of the first humanity of Hyperborea Asgard event, colonization by the custodians, destruction of the advanced civilization. Reset of the first generation event, increase of forbidden knowledge. Duration of the cycle. So they started contacting outside the ice wall. The next generation event, contact with extraterrestrials. Increase of critical thinking, 1558 years. Reset of the third generation event, rediscovery of the true nature of the dome. Rebellions, the true nature of the dome, interesting. Reset of the fourth generation event, war, external intervention of archons, giant beings. Reset of the fifth generation event, internal conflicts, external alliances, increase of spiritual knowledge. This is what has led up to it. Everything I'm reading leads up to it and is why they were reset. The sixth generation reset, the Great Tartary event, great war against the custodians and Anunnaki, intervention of the Anakim giants, creation of an advanced empire. Cycle time, 6,470 years. Due to the conflict between the custodians and the Anunnaki, the human colony was relegated from custodial control, passing into the hands of the Orion Greys temporarily. For that reason, many years of advancement were reached. The Anakim giant race joined humanity during the previous reset, coming from outside to free them from oppressive custodian rule. They believed it was the right time to unite and wait for the custodial return from the masters. The Great Tartary, erased from maps and history, represented the perfect union of giants and humans. The history of giants or giant humans was hidden or manipulated with myths, sentencing them as enemies of the gods. In reality, the true enemies were the colonizers who hindered the free development of races and spiritual growth, not only in the known lands but also in many others. Giants chose to remain hidden to avoid further harm to humanity. The past failures have caused a high price, staining the oceans with ancestral blood. These lands known to Helen have suffered greatly, but they once held hopes of achieving external freedom. The Great War began so suddenly that there was no time to comprehend the events that unfolded surrounding it. The custodians launched their attack on the major cities, aiming to weaken the central power. Giants had warned the humans of the custodians' plan to contaminate the air, but knowledge about the custodians' greed and hostility had been limited. With the help of the giants, humans gradually learned from the custodians information acquired before the war. An inferior race controlled the lands and maximized their potential rapidly, the Orion Greys. The Great Tartary's advancement was well organized and swift, considering the harsh conditions. Now, that is because they went through and they found catacombs and went into the pyramids and found super advanced technology left behind by the custodians in the Anunnaki. They reverse engineered it and were able to create new and more advanced weaponry. This gave them great advantage, especially learning how to get energy from the ether. Before the creation of the ice walls, continents looked different, and the environment was manipulated after the custodians came close to losing their colony to the giant barbarians and the humans they detested. Ancient cities were invaded by black smoke, and giants brought advanced technology to Tartary, sharing knowledge that humans had never seen before. Despite expecting the Great War, the attack came suddenly, catching everyone off guard. The custodians and their lackeys, the Greys, could not withstand the power of the Anakim, the giants who assisted humans with their technology. Not all giants participated in the war, and many later split due to disagreements. The hope of defeating the custodians was strong, filling everyone with a priceless sense of potential freedom. The war, however, was the cruelest ever fought, leading to a devastating reset and a new beginning. The current oppressive system, which degrades humans spiritually and controls minds, stems from the custodians' fear of losing their best colony. This manipulation is evident in the power of the media and so-called experts who reinforce the lies, making it difficult for people to question or resist the imposed falsehoods. Helen's mother often recounts stories of their ancestors' struggle. The previous reset was the harshest, as humans and giants had once controlled the situation. When the central power fell, millions died, making recovery difficult. Helen's mother, a newborn at the time, was carried to safety by her grandmother, saved by the giants. The giant race joined humans during the previous reset, aiming to free them from the custodians' oppression. The Great Tartary was a union of giants and humans, whose history was later erased or manipulated. Giants chose to remain hidden to avoid harming the humans more, and the lands and ancestral blood were stained and lost the hope of achieving freedom.
Helen's father, William, returned to his birthplace longing to help those who he left behind. He was tormented by the knowledge of his brothers suffering under wars, manipulation, and pestilence. Fearing the loss of their colony, they reinforced the walls and military bases, creating treaties and barriers to prevent humans from learning the truth. Despite these measures, about 14,000 infiltrated ancestors continued to support the mission for human liberation. However, an incident near the Antarctic Peninsula revealed their presence, leading to a crackdown. The custodians used advanced technology to control humanity, complicating the liberation plan. Some infiltrators had to return, and many died labeled as traitors. So on this last trip with Captain Butler and William Morris, Captain Butler would return from this trip alone. Helen's eyes filled with tears knowing that her father was lost. Helen saw Butler approach her and her mother looking defeated, his eyes bloodshot. He was also wounded in an arm and a leg. Those 10 or 15 meters felt like an eternity. When he finally reached them, he looked up and couldn't hold back his tears. He told them that Helen's father had died in the known lands near the Antarctic zone due to the custodial military technology. The custodians had supplied advanced technology to commandos and military leaders of certain countries, technology they did not even know how to use. This posed a severe danger to all life within the walled lands. The custodians realized this was a significant mistake, risking their own colony in the process. Although experienced in war, they underestimated the potential of a race to overcome them or the danger of losing those lands. In their desperation, they gave this unknown technology to the new humanity to counter the returning ancestors and other humans. The custodians also shared knowledge of weather modification and environmental manipulation. The ship Iron Blue, carrying Helen's father, some ancestors, and humans of the new reset, disintegrated in midair while crossing the Antarctic skies. An invisible barrier created by the custodians just before the dome caused this destruction. At the time, the barrier was unknown, leading to the loss of dozens of ships. Butler, returning on another ship, survived by a miracle and recounted Helen's father's death in detail. It was the worst moment of Helen's life. She felt immense frustration and helplessness towards the known lands. She lost faith in the custodians and the new humanity, questioning whether her father's death was worth it for a cause that seemed doomed. Over time, Helen came to understand and feel in her heart that she was part of these lands. She realized her father wanted humanity to be freed forever, just as she did now. The technology given by the custodians caused conflicts within the known lands, with countries using it to threaten and attack each other.
This technology also made ships, planes, and people disappear, disintegrating them. The knowledge of climate and environmental manipulation added to the chaos, creating an era of turmoil that persists today. Since then, there has been a fear that humanity might be destroyed in an absurd war using biological weapons, or that the custodians might decide to reset out of fear of extermination. There was also the concern that humans might use this technology to attack the custodians, although this is a least likely scenario. Helen knew that after the incident at the Antarctic Peninsula, the custodians launched a massive crackdown. With fabricated lies and flimsy excuses, they stormed homes in countless countries, fearing that they were hiding members of the resistance. For over a decade, they scoured every corner for clues, using advanced technology to monitor and control the movements of the new humanity. Although they possessed such technology, the custodians reinforced it significantly after the Peninsula incident. This development severely complicated the plan. It was a major setback, as Helen and her allies had people strategically infiltrated in the highest levels of power: politics, secret societies, organizations, companies, universities, and even more. The resistance had been using their own technology to counteract custodial detection, making significant progress in preparing for the eventual transfer of many of those who were beginning to awaken to the truth. But the incident forced them to realize how delicate their situation had become. Any misstep could lead to an immediate reset. Initially, overcoming the barriers, military bases, and custodial technology, which included radars capable of causing earthquakes, was not a significant problem. The resistance had managed to bypass these obstacles repeatedly. But then the inevitable happened. An alarm was triggered by an earthquake near what the custodians knew as the Antarctic Peninsula, but which Helen's people referred to as False Antarctica. A group of travelers from the Ancestral Republic encountered a military base while patrolling the area in an icebreaker. When the group attempted to escape, the custodians' forces sank their ship, and the consequences reverberated through the highest circles of power. The custodians began hunting down everyone involved, searching every conceivable hiding place. They intensified their efforts, spreading fear and tightening their grip. They invaded homes, using technology to track the resistance movement more effectively than ever before. This escalation threw a wrench into the resistance's plans. Many of the 14,000 infiltrators were forced to return, and fear became a harsh reality. Some of Helen's ancestors were captured and executed as traitors, suffering unimaginable tortures that she chose not to detail here. Upon Captain Butler's return, he would be alone, without William Morris. A day Helen would never forget. Her eyes filled with tears as she realized she would never see her father again. Butler approached Helen and her mother, his face drawn, his eyes bloodshot. He was wounded in his arm and his leg. The 10 or 15 meters he walked towards them felt like an eternity. When he finally reached them, Butler looked up, unable to hold back his tears. He told them that Helen's father had died in the known lands, killed by custodial military technology near the Antarctic zone. The custodians, in their desperation, had handed advanced technology to commandos and military leaders in certain countries. Technology that these leaders didn't even know how to use. This recklessness was extremely dangerous for all of life within the walled lands. The custodians knew that giving such power to the new humanity would be a grave mistake, one that even threatened their own colony. But in their arrogance, they never considered the possibility that a race could overcome them, nor did they fully grasp the dangers of losing control of these lands. Questioning whether her father's death had been in vain for a cause that seemed doomed from the start. But as time passed, Helen came to understand. She felt it in her heart. She knew that she too was part of these lands, just as her father had been, and she realized that he had died for something much greater, a dream of humanity's ultimate liberation. Now more than ever, she was determined to carry on that fight, to ensure that humanity would be freed forever. Despite the setbacks and losses, the fight against the custodians has never ceased. The resistance remained steadfast, driven by the memory of those who had fought and sacrificed. The plan to liberate humanity is continuing, fueled by the desire for the true freedom and spiritual growth. Helen knew that the struggle was far from over, but she was ready to carry on the legacy of her fathers and the others who had come before her. So I hope y'all enjoyed that video and got some interesting information, whether it's true or not. One of the most fascinating things I found about what I just read or talked about was the fact that Jesus actually allegedly arrived during the 6 generations Great Run, the Great Tartary. I just find that very fascinating. And it was at the ladder of their run. So it makes you wonder, was he sent during the Great War? Was he sent at the beginning, at the end? And if he was, then that makes sense as to why they crucified him. But if the Great Tartary was in control, you can't help but wonder where Pontius Pilate was influenced and by who. It's very interesting to me they sent Jesus, whoever it was, to show the Great Tartary what humanity was possibly capable of if they would find their spirituality, is what I believe. But it's crazy he did all these amazing things during the Great Tartary's run while the Anakim giants were here. Also, I wanted to touch on the 14,000 ancestors that were sent here and infiltrated society right after the Great Reset, the flood. And it would have been about the right timing because 1728, then they infiltrated. And then what happened? The Revolutionary War. I've always wondered if we're being ran by an evil faction or if we're being oppressed or influenced by a negative faction. Then how did the United States come to be? How did it happen to where there was democracy and freedom and the Constitution was written up, the right to bear arms, the freedom to be, the freedom in pursuit of happiness, the right to pursuit of happiness, free speech, all of the above? Those aren't negative or constitutional rights. I've often wondered that as I've found out more and more about what's going on here. And now I know the answer. Some of the men who wrote the Constitution, our founding fathers, allegedly and arguably may have been some of the ancestors from the previous civilization. It's hard to say. This is all just speculation. This is all just fantastical thought and theory. You know what I'm saying? It's all just theory, and it's for fun. So don't take it too literally, but I've often wondered that. They planted people in certain places. You heard them in universities, politicians, you name it, media, celebrities, and they influenced society, and it had to have been for the positive. So it answers the question to me. A consistently asked question in my own mind was, how did the ideals of our country, one of the first countries to do so, get established? It makes total sense now. It's just wild as we go through this story, the dots that I've connected, the more I learned. Something to think about. Let me know what you think in the comments. Obviously, for entertainment purposes only, this may or may not be true. It's all theory and speculation, and it's just for fun. It's fringe, it's esoteric, it's just interesting to talk about, right? I hope you enjoyed the video, and bear with me, guys. I'm working on not reading the scripts. It's going to take some time. It's hard to do, but I'm getting there. It's impossible to memorize them, so sometimes I do have to read. I'm trying to present it in a way that I'm not, but sometimes it may just seem that way. But I hope the information makes up for it. All right, stay in the love, stay in the light, be kind to others. And until next time, I am out.